A lovely Saturday evening to all our Poets Lighthouse viewers. I am, as always, Phynne Belle, your host, poet, writer, and podcaster from the San Francisco Bay Area, bringing you today another great episode of our program, and of course, another amazing guest. Joining us here tonight is Catrice Greer, a creative who is a poet, writer, producer, curator, and host, among many other talents. She is the 2021 Pushcart Prize nominee and formerly served as a Cheltenham Poetry Festival Poet in Residence in November of 2020. As a literary artist, Catrice promotes mental health awareness in her poetic work and in partnerships with local organizations, and as an international artist and active panelist. Her most recent poems have been published in a number of digital literary magazines, international anthologies, blogs, and local newsletters. She is currently in the process of working on her first chapbook. Catrice, thank you so much for graciously taking your time out of your day to join us.
I am happy to be here, Phynne. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm looking forward to our interview today.
Me as well, and you're very welcome. So I wanted to just get right into it. I had the pleasure of being able to sit down and soak in your Pushcart Prize nominated poem, Mama's Mendes.
Thank you.
And you're welcome. And, you know, it touches so fervently, like a prayer, listening to it over and over. It's almost like a prayer or a litany repeating. And while it's repeating, when you repeat the verse, which is the title, it causes a process of healing when you're speaking it. So it feels like in your poetry, and this is not the only one that it applies to, that inextricably the past is present there. It is woven. It feels like his history that's centuries long is present in your poetry. What do you think that poetry would feel like deprived of this sort of ancestry or legacy, or any sort of past history holding it up? I know that was a long question to chew on, but yeah.
Let me see if I make sure I have absorbed the question correctly.
Okay.
What would the poem be like without the past history? To hold it up in terms of, do you mean in terms of like past history, in terms of my own past history, or in terms of just life in general? What?
Yes, in terms of your own past history to hold it up, that presence of that history that you own, or that you were given as your legacy.
That is a really fabulous question. Got the cogs turning in my head here. So I have to pause, because when I wrote that poem originally, I was about 22-ish, 23. And I really believe I wrote it when I was a little after 20, and then did a little bit more when I was 23. That would be 1990, 1993. I performed it for a while and then came back last year and edited it. Went in and edited it. And I think looking at it over time, a longitudinal view of it, is that, yes, I wrote it at a time when my elders were dying. My Aunt Aldis from Cayman Islands, who lived with us and helped raise me, I was very, very sad.
Yeah.
And I missed her so much. And I was contemplating the nurturance of my Aunt Aldis, my great Aunt Ruth, who was also ailing because she had dementia.
Yeah.
Alzheimer's, really. And my grandmother at that time had a brain tumor, and I was responsible for going to college, but also assisting my mom in taking my grandmother back and forth to the doctor's appointments. And I ran the carpool for all the elder women. I was very sad because it felt like a significant part of life was slipping away. They were a huge mainstay in all of our lives. So when I look back on it now and I read it differently because that moment has passed, um, what I see is that it transcends me. It at a certain point, it no longer became about me. It became about other people. When I say 595 glossy spread open at the crease, for me at the time, it was about my own um, inexplicable trauma that I could not really say any other way.
Mm-hmm.
But at this point, it's about the treatment of women in general and the objectification of women, of any human, in a very, very sexual way without seeing them as whole. There are pieces in there about culture, however people worship, that coming to, for me, I'm Christian, so it'll be coming to Jesus moment, and the feeling of being with the elders in the church.
Yeah.
But however that translates to people wherever their faith lies, I think people can identify with that. And so all of these pieces of healing, that mother energy, in my opinion, is transcended. It's no longer gender specific.
Mm-hmm.
I see the mother energy as it's nurturance that can come from any gender that offers the nurturing energies, the mothering, the verb of it, that mothering. And don't we all need that? Sometimes some of us need to reparent ourselves, and we're pulling that forth in our darkest moments. And that's how I see that poem. There are so many people that are reparenting themselves, so to speak, because parents can only do so much, whether they were great parents or parents without the skills that some needed. Once we become adults, we're reparenting ourselves. We're filling in the pieces that no one human being can possibly, or two, can possibly fill, and is that nurturing energy. And so I think that's how it transcends that, my personal history, into something more global, something that anyone can identify with.
Yeah,
Kind of
and I do love that growth, where the poem grew and matured and in a way sort of parented itself moving forward, giving life and nurturing other people in the process, growing to become something, like you said, that is more global. That's a beautiful thing, and I think that's truly a beautiful thing about about poetry, that a lot of people think that it maintains to be stagnant, and it isn't. It's this moving, living thing.
And one other thought, I just felt last year during the pandemic, which is why I kind of resurrected it again and went in and started editing. When Ice Flow Press, who is now one of my publishers, and I'm guest editor with them now, but at the time they had a mother voice project that I was going to send it in for as a submission, an open call submission. And I couldn't get Mama Menzas out of my mind. And I kept thinking, this is the perfect time to let her reemerge. It had never been published before. It had been performed for over 2 decades plus, but never published. So I thought, wow, in the middle of a pandemic, when people are suffering, incurring all kinds of losses, we all need nurturing. And I thought, I hope that people will be able to connect with this. And I just took a chance, and they accepted it.
And that is, that is a wonderful thing that happened. It was meant to be at the time where it, when it happened, and it was necessary in the time that it happened. So I wanted to ask you about, when I was going further in to the lovely information that you had shared with me. You wrote in the description, and also touched, here and there on poems that I've actually heard you personally perform on the topic of the theme of love. And as you probably know, love tends to lose its color because it's been written about so much. What about that theme of love holds you still? What if it holds you, and how do you convey that the purity of that emotion to others who hear your poetry?
Love for me equates to healing, and it equates to thriving, and it equates to unity and connection. There, of course, is a yin and yang to love, the brokenness of love, and then the healing of it, yes, or the emergence of it. I just feel that it's literally the components for me of everything. It is creation. It is creation. Even if I were to write a poem, which I write sometimes about flowers blossoming, blooming, it sounds, it's love, it's creation. Something is creating, something beautiful is coming. So, and evolving. And so love for me is really present in almost every single thing, and how we interconnect as human beings in particular, because we're such sentient beings. So, and it's also how we disconnect, if it is not full and healed and present.
Yes.
So I just never really run out of dialogue about love.
That is possibly the best way for somebody to put it that I've heard in a long time, because there's that often repeated refrain, which actually happens to be a lyric, from a Beatles song. All you need is love. You explained that so well. If you were to explain to people why, love is interwoven in all our decisions, all the factors of our life, you just said it right there. Especially the part which is something I'd like to chew on a little bit more, where you said that it's also the disconnect, and that is so true. When I dwell on that,
Yes.
that's powerful. That is so powerful. So, dearest viewers, when we return from our break, we can look forward to more poetic insight with our lovely guest. Welcome back from our short break. Catrice, in your previous interview with Fevers of the Mind Press, you had mentioned your vast love of different genres of music. Your poems, when you perform them, have the most exquisite rhythm to them. Do you set your poetry to music inside of your head, and when you are reading them aloud?
The best way I can explain that is poetry is music to me.
Yes.
And it's a language. So when I hear it and it streams through me, it's music. It's not necessarily, I remember it to write it down by the rhythm. How we learn music on the radio or our favorite record. I remember when I am, let's say, inspired to write a poem, and I hear it, it streams through. It streams through. My job is to catch it, as you well know, as a fellow poet, right? And to hold on to that kite string, and follow it through. And the way I follow it and remember all of the words and the pattern and the line breaks and the way certain words go together, and the tone of the poem is based on the sound of it. The sonorous sound of it is literally music. I hear it as its own sort of music.
And do you find that element of the music leading and not dictating, but kind of maintaining the flow and direction of it? Does that help you also maintain it, and it's not as fleeting? It's able to hold on to it before it does pass from your mind?
I try to. I mean, like 80% of the time. And then, there's that 20% that you're like, what was that again? You just caught the edge of it and it's gone, but it was lovely when it passed through.
Yes.
And usually the volume is kind of low in my head, and I have to really practice meditating a lot over the course of my lifetime in order to be very good at focusing in on hearing it. The same way we focus in on hearing our inner voice and teach us to do that, it's literally, for me, the same mental exercise.
Yes, I agree. That's I also like that you introduced the idea of meditation. You are the third person who mentioned that, and I know it's not uncommon, but I tend to be such a chaotic person that it's hard for me to even center myself. But I am learning to be in the quiet moments, even if it's just for a few seconds, and it is useful in my daily practice writing my poetry. But one of the previous guests I interviewed, David Lee Sirois from
Oh yes, Spoken World Online.
He mentioned how that is basically how he begins his day, and then how he has this ongoing dialogue with poems, much like yourself, that he has a relationship with over a long period of time. And I think that's a beautiful thing. You're never quite done with the poem. Even if it's on its page, it continues to maybe have a different life, or it can have a continuous life, even past it being supposedly committed to page, which a lot of another guest of ours was saying that was a big fear, where once it's written down on the page, is that affair, or is that relationship over and done with?
You really do have a long relationship with it. And one thing I wanted to say about meditation is that for me, I was very athletic when I was younger. Only due to disability did I need to stop when I was about 40. And I want to say pause because I really miss being athletic. But part of that athleticism included dance. And I took dance classes from the time I was 5 until I was 33. Off and on. And I was very, very, very serious about it. I wanted to say about meditation that it's also kinetic. So a lot of times when people think about meditation, they're thinking sitting, but sometimes movement. I know when I danced, moving, some people are very kinetic, but I found also when I was dancing and moving, everything was gone. Because I'm moving, and it's literally a prayer of itself. It's a space, and you're levitating in this space because there's only you and the music. And I was 5 when I started that. I was more like 8, 9, 10 when I actually started writing poetry. Music came first. Dance came first. So all these components together, no matter how you get into your style of meditation and what works for you, it doesn't necessarily have to be sitting still. It could be jogging. It could be exercising, whatever gets you in that space. It all matters. And I wanted to say that because sometimes I'm doing many different things and I'm literally meditating.
It is so strange but wonderful how you brought up dancing. I was not dancing from a early age, but it was very intensely in a long period of time. And there is a connection between my ending of being able to dance from an injury as well, to going back and revisiting and becoming having a affair or a new renewed relationship with my poetry. But it is fed by that creativity, and you are right about it being a source of meditation, because there is that moment where you are there and you are completely still and in that moment when you are dancing, and it's just you and the music and the motion. It is a beautiful kind of prayer to the universe in itself,
Yes.
sending out that signal to, yeah, so that's gorgeous the way that you put that. So, Catrice, I know that our audience looks forward to this part of the segment, probably as much as I do. And this is the part of our program every week where we invite and we have the opportunity to listen to our guest poet read original poems of theirs, and it's just the best for me because we're hearing it in the voice of the poet themselves. So I wanted to invite you now to please share your selection that you have chosen. But before you do that, if you don't mind telling us a little bit more about the poem first.
I'd be happy to. Thank you so much. So, the poem that I'm going to read for you today is called One Day Soon. It was published in Steel Jackdaw Arts magazine. It's a digital magazine, and it's out of Gloucestershire, UK. That was in April of this year, 2021. The poem itself is constructed, it's about COVID. It's about anticipating life after COVID. The structure of the poem is imagery. And when I say imagery, I'm using a psychological, a grounding tool, uh, an imagery grounding tool, so that when people speak it, the way the words are said, it slows down the pacing, so that people focus on the images and somehow transcend depression a little bit in the moment, transcend anxiety in the moment. I use the five senses in grounding techniques. You're using all five senses: something you smell, something you taste, something you see, something you touch, etc. And so I've incorporated that into the poem, so that even though you're not touching, tasting, etc., you are imagining it. And the way the brain works, if you're imagining it, it's very hard to tell whether you've actually done it or not done it. The brain is registering that. And I'm using that in this poem to do something good to help people psychologically through this time in COVID. Think of something positive if they can, if only for the moment. One day soon, we will meet in the clearing, when the cornfields are scattered bare, the ears bent, stalks leaning sun-spent and shucked, when the pumpkins, plump nestled in the patch, rotund, sunk propped in a bed of curling vines, when the ducks, orioles, and swallows start deciding on a V-formed avenue to a place where the sun-warmed spots are home, when our summer rises for the second time, we bid it farewell until it rises resurrected as Lazarus from winter's death, after spring's first breath, after summer's next full bloom. When the hush of our breaths are sweet welcome, not a poison behind a mask. One day soon, we will meet in the clearing, stand in the fall of what was meant to break us. One day soon, we will embrace, close this gap, hold on hard.
These gorgeous images just grip you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for letting me read that today.
You're very welcome. It was our honor.
The dogs like it too. Thank you. Ruff, ruff, ruff.
So, Catrice, in your poems, including this one, the images are so ripe. They're always so vivid, and you can almost reach out to feel them, and somewhere, in your intuition that when you reach out, you will actually feel something, and it will have texture and shape and warmth to it. Can you give us an idea of the process that happens when you are going from the point of conveying what is in your mind to what you put in on the blank page?
So for this poem, I was trying to envision what it would look like. I was literally doing the imagery work, right? So being a trauma survivor, right? And imagery being one of the grounding techniques, I sort of know how to integrate that in my clinical needs. But as a creative, it works there too. So I'm asking myself, what does it look like past all of the worry, the fear, the what does that place look like? And then I imagined it. And then I asked myself, what does it smell like? And then I imagined it. What's happening there? Then I imagined it. And my dreams are very, very vivid when I sleep. Hence, when I am in my space, when I'm imagining things, they are extremely vivid. Sometimes it's hard to tell whether it's happening in the moment because I can feel everything. I can feel the wind. I can feel the briskness of the fall. I knew that it was about October. I could feel that. I could see the color of the pumpkins. I asked myself, well, what do the pumpkins look like in the patch that I'm seeing? I'm seeing little, it's very cinematic. I see images, I smell it. And it just, maybe it's years of practice because I don't have to manually push forth a lot of effort that I used to have to do years ago. But it's more automatic now, I can say, and it's happening, I mean, at lightning speed, to be honest. What do the pumpkins look like? They're sunk propped. My mind will just throw the words out. I don't have a lot of barriers when it comes to how words go together. A lot of practice over the years has helped me break down my reticence to break rules. And then I practice not breaking rules. And so it started to just make up my own rules. What works for me? What is my real voice? And it just kind of rolls out automatically from the imagination. I feel becomes so vivid. I'm experiencing it, and the words come to accompany that.
That is a very useful, and it is definitely a tool that um, is worth looking more into. On my part, I feel that sometimes a writer's block or um, a lack of finding the perfect image or the description for it is the limitation itself. But the way that you explain that, where you're visualizing it exactly as it is, you are in that moment experiencing it, and then you are putting that into words.
Yes.
That is just a beautiful, um, I hate to say tool because tool seems just so impersonal and clinical. It is um, this moving force that I like, and the way that you explained it, how it goes from being what it is, which is reliving that actual experience, to being the words that you place down. I see that direct. I beautifully saw that direct connection. So we are actually at our time. Unfortunately, I would love to sit down more with you because you have so many beautiful things, so many wonderful and powerful things to share with us. But I wanted to end our time by asking you. You did mention that you are in the works or in the process um, of writing your upcoming chapbook. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. I'm in the arranging and editing process. I have a lot of poems that I rarely share, and I have several books in my head and sort of partially constructed. So I'm in the editing process of really putting them together. The next step after that, I've already chosen who I would like to trust to walk through that with me. But because I'm a woman that has manages my own health conditions and disabilities, for me, my time and my energy is such that I am not going to be able to like peddle my stuff, and market it with a lot of zeal and energy. I need assistance to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Not because of the disabilities, because of the shortness of time and to be effective.
Yes.
So it makes my job a little bigger because I have to really make sure that my stuff is well edited and catches the attention of larger publishers who would be willing to take it on, the larger publishers who will literally take on the whole project and shoulder the work and do it well. Get it out there, use their lists, so that I won't be limited to friends, family, which I hesitate to use that word limited, but I mean in terms of the scope will be wider. They have their list, their bookstore lists. They've already done all, they're entrenched out there in the world. And that would be easier for me. But it does that it's got to be doggone good for them to pay attention to me. So that's what I'm working on right now, is really just meticulously trying to get it to that point so that I can, if there's even a possibility in the universe to jump that gap, that I give myself the best chance to do that.
And I'm definitely hoping for the best on that endeavor. It is the necessary work that must be done. Unfortunately, with having to be the writer, but also be the person who is, especially with independent and small writers, being the person who is, um, doing the process of um, the sometimes unsavory act of having to promote or to be the one to do the legwork, your legwork of your finished product.
Yes.
We want to thank our guest and, as always, our loving audience for tuning in to the Poets Lighthouse. If you would like to know more about our guest, Catrice Greer, please visit her website at www.catricegreer.com, where you will also find links to her YouTube page as well as her SoundCloud recordings. You could also follow Catrice on Twitter at cgreer_Greer and on Instagram at gcatrice. That's G from her last name, and Catrice, Catrice. Please remember to show your support of the Poetry Global Network by subscribing to our YouTube channel and liking and sharing our videos. Please have a lovely evening.